FANSPLAINED, a media criticism podcast with Ryan and Em. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Em.
With us this episode is a returning special guest, our friend Bridget, who is one of the foremost X-Men experts we know.
Hello.
Do you wanna plug your stuff?
Yeah, I have a podcast.
Plug your stuff.
Plug time. No, I have a podcast called Olympic Size Podcast. It's unlicensed, unofficial, unaffiliated with the IOC True History of the Olympics. We're up to the Summer Games in 1932. Lots of fun stuff, but, totally not the same, even close to the same kind of vibe as movie reviews. So, but if you are interested in sports or sports history or history, we kind of hit all those notes.
Yeah. So, this week we're continuing our brief dip into the Marvel Cinematic MULTIVERSE with coverage of X2, X-Men United, and X3, The Last Stand.
Whew.
Insert wet fart noise.
I was saying to my husband, I was like, this little duology really proves my thesis of the Fox X-Men movies of they do not have the consistency of the MCU. No. But when they are good, they are stratospheric, and when they are bad, they are abysmal, and they don't really have much in between.
No, they don't.
They are either really good or they are really bad, and that's the only consistency they have.
Yeah,
actually,
it's always an adventure. You never know.
So, yeah, if you know anything about these movies, the up and down variance of opinion here won't be too surprising. If you don't, welcome. There will be an up and down variance of opinion.
Welcome.
It is what some other later characters might call whiplash.
Yep.
Yeah, so, also, disclaimer, this episode is likely to include criticism of both films and both involved directors, and may have mentions of toxic and harassing behavior at best, and thus if criticism of the films or directors are sensitive topics for you, as well as the things that they are accused of having done, we suggest that you go ahead and skip this. Unfortunately, we're not going to get out of Singer or Ratner territory this episode.
No.
So, fair warning. Alright. So, X2 came out in May of 2003, and X3 came out in May of 2006. With X2, they were both done by Fox, because this is still the era of Fox owns the rights to X-Men. Yeah. Not surprising. But they were both made by vastly different teams, and thus we get vastly different products, despite the fact that Kevin Feige is an executive producer on at least X3.
He learned some lessons from that.
Yeah, it's his fault that we at least get the, oh my stars and garters, but nothing else.
But at what cost?
Yeah, exactly at what cost. So X2 was originally rated R due to its violence, with the one scene with, the dudes coming in to, shoot up the school or whatever. Yeah, also, sorry, trigger warning for school shootings, I guess. Fuck.
I mean,
these movies hit weird now.
Yes.
They really do. It's not exactly the same, the context, thankfully, but that scene was originally too violent that they got a rated R, and they had to go remove, quote, a few seconds.
They should have kept the R rating.
They had to remove a few seconds of that fight.
Meanwhile,
to make it a PG-13.
Meanwhile, they literally have people exploding in the third one, but okay. Sure.
Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good.
Stop it. I told you it's too soon for that.
It's not ever, because it's sad.
It is too soon. It'll forever be too soon.
No.
Rude.
So X3, on the other hand, had an issue retaining directors. They went through at least half a dozen of them, if not more. They had an incredibly rushed production by the time they got started. I think they had maybe a year to finish and premiere.
Yeah.
And it was, to its date at least, the most expensive movie ever made at $210 million.
And they completely...
Where did that budget go?
At least...
Just the bridge and I don't know. Somebody's salary, Halle Berry's salary, I don't know. Don't quote me on that, allegedly.
See, when you give someone like James Cameron that kind of money, you see every dollar on screen. When you give someone like this that money, you get X3.
I would be shocked if Halle Berry was the highest paid.
I don't think she was. She was just famously the one that kept, like, poking them for, like...
But she
not more money, but, like, more screen time and stuff. It was probably Hugh Jackman or Pat Stu.
I was gonna say, it was probably one of the white men in the cast.
I'm sure it was, sadly. Yeah. Especially with X3, where they kept having, like, all these black women just fight each other.
Yeah.
Or women of color fighting each other.
I want to clarify that it's not a criticism of Halle Berry at all. It's a criticism of the people making the movie who have undervalued her by default.
Yes.
And gave her that awful hair.
I mean, she wouldn't have gotten to the point of having to demand that they give her more of a role or she walks if they'd just given her more of a role to begin with.
I mean, she had a pretty decent role in X2, but then
I thought her role in X2 was really good.
Yeah, they actually had a lot of good character moments throughout that whole movie. It's X3 that suffers the most.
Yeah, well, I mean, they all do. Except for Hank. My boy Hank did great, I thought.
He tried so hard.
He did.
He's trying so hard to sell that really bad script.
And okay, we'll get there.
I mean, we're pretty much there.
Well, we are there, actually. We're we don't have a whole lot of production trivia on these because they were what they were, other than the fact that they had to go through, like, 5 million directors to try and find someone to replace Bryan Singer, who left to go make Superman Returns. Which was a film that they almost gave to Brett Ratner.
Oh, God.
Instead, even though Brett Ratner was originally also considered for the original X-Men.
And both Superman Returns and X3 sucked, so...
Yeah, but I mean, that's also why we're missing James Marsden, because he went and worked on that movie.
I forgot.
And, like, half the cast had, like, all these scheduling conflicts, so they kept, like, writing out half their characters, or getting rid of them super early. So, X2 has Bryan Singer returning as director. We have gone over how problematic Bryan Singer is. This is not a tacit approval of Bryan Singer or anything he was accused of. We're just recognizing that his name is still attached to this film.
Yeah.
And it had David Hayder returning as a co-writer alongside Michael Dougherty and Dan Harris, who also worked with Singer on a concept of X3 before Singer exited that sounded like an entirely better movie, but I'll get to that later.
Wild.
It sounded much, much better, but I'll get to that in a second. X2 is basically based on God Loves, Man Kills, which is this storyline which basically still had Stryker in it, but he was like a reverend in that instead of like a government official, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ew. That's part where the God Loves part.
Oh my God.
He was like an evangelical TV preacher. Basically.
I forgot about that. Ew.
Yeah, and I can't remember the name of his like group, but he had like a hate group that was kind of KKK-ish.
Oh, were they the ones with the armbands?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're the ones that are in the cartoon.
Ew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
or akin to that, anyway.
And I want to say something like them shows up in The Gifted. There's some of that in The Gifted TV show, I want to say.
I haven't seen it.
It's been a long time since I watched that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I think they pull some of that in.
And then the other one is obviously Return to Weapon X, which is half this film's plot.
Yes.
X3, because Bryan Singer couldn't come back, they hired Brett Ratner, who had a long history of
harassment?
Films.
Oh.
Films. But yes, he also had a history of harassment, and they didn't bring him back because of exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that when we get to cast stuff, because that was some mess. That's what that was. The writers on that were Simon Kinberg, who also came back to write like all of the prequel X-Men movies. Mm-hmm. And then he also directed Dark Phoenix that came out a couple years ago.
I think that was kind of a redemption for him.
Which is funny, because most of the fandom really doesn't like Dark Phoenix, and they equate it to this movie a lot.
It does not deserve that.
They are not the same movie.
I have not seen Dark Phoenix yet, because I wanted to actually go back and rewatch all of the X-Men films from the first one onward, and I never got around to
we'll get around to it.
We are getting around to it now.
We're getting there. And Zach Penn, who we've talked about previously before, he showed up a lot.
Shame on you.
Either as, like, a co-writer, or the writer of The Incredible Hulk, or the guy that Joss Whedon just sat and shit on for the entirety of the Avengers.
He's also in another career of ups and downs.
Yeah, incredibly. He also did some, like, outline work on X2, so Penn was actually the guy that talked Singer down from doing Dark Phoenix in X2.
Oh my god. That would have been way too much.
So, I mean, Penn kind of knows what he's doing, but I feel like X3 is just... It is... You know how, like, when we talked about with X-Men, where, like, there was a recipe there where everything could have gone wrong, and it shouldn't have been a good movie, but it turned out well. X3 is, like, the polar opposite. It should have been set up to succeed, and had been given this legacy of good movies prior.
Yeah. It had all the qualifications to succeed, really.
I do want to say, because, like, I remember so clearly watching this in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And X-Men was good. I liked it. X2 was so good. It was so exciting at the end.
Mm-hmm.
In the lake, they have the shadow of the Phoenix in there.
Yes.
We're like, oh my god, they're gonna do Dark Phoenix, and
yes,
we were so excited. And then watching it, and I was pretty young still when that came out. You know what I mean? Like I was
I just graduated high school the summer prior. Yeah,
I was still in high
dating
school.
myself. Hi.
Yeah,
I was still in high school.
Yeah, I was. I think I'm I think I was maybe in my first year of college, but like it was, you know, at that point where you're really starting to kind of realize, oh, sometimes things are bad. Like, you know what I mean? And just that sickening feeling when you're watching it in the theater and you are realizing, oh, this is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And you were looking so forward. It was a very clear. This is why I'm so jaded about all these Star Wars movies. It was such a clear thing. It was like, no, this sucks. This sucks, and I am so disappointed, and I will never trust these stupid franchises again.
Yeah, I remember. That's right. I remember that I didn't actually watch X3 when it came out because I was too obsessed with Lord of the Rings then, and that's all my life was for a few years.
I mean, to be fair, you picked the better one.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings actually worked beginning to end.
I had my first job when X2 came out, and I worked at a movie theater. And I saw X2 11 times.
Did you
on the theaters. Oh yeah, I counted them. I saved all the tickets. That's how I knew I saw it that much. I have only ever seen 2 other movies that many times in a theater run, and this was the only one that was comped by the theater. First time was The Phantom Menace, because I kept buying matinee tickets, and my mom would take me out to the theater, and then I'd go to the library while she was at work. And the only other one that I've seen almost that many times, I think, was Thor: The Dark World, actually.
Really?
I still love that movie.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. But yeah, so I saw X2 11 times. It never got worse, because it's a fucking phenomenal movie.
It's really good.
But yeah, I remember going to see X3 on, like, a summer vacation, because I was at home. I wasn't in school. And, oh my god. Just... I remember just, like, from the get-go, it just feels fundamentally different. You can tell the director is different. And, like, even with X2, like, you can kind of tell that it's still Bryan Singer, but, like, it's so much better quality-wise.
They had a much bigger budget.
It almost felt like a completely different director because of all the money that they'd clearly put into it.
And also a lot of the shots were better and different.
Yeah, but I mean, you get to X3 and, like, it has everything it should have. Like, the cinematography should be okay. Like, it has these very cinematic shots that we were kind of missing from the first movie, as did the second one. But, like, it has all these very, very smooth shots, but it's like, it is filmed literally just as, like, an action tech demo more so than it is an actual movie.
Like, there were singular parts in this movie that I kind of liked here and there, but the rest of it was absolute garbage. And that's basically me comparing it to an animated cartoon that came out when I was a child. And I remember watching the Phoenix Saga from beginning to end, and I just remember that, that sinking feeling of dread that this is bad. That's how I felt when I was watching this. It was just like, this isn't right.
From the get-go.
This feels very bad.
Yeah, well, I have some fun things to tell you about that.
Boy.
X3 is supposed to be based, theoretically, on the Dark Phoenix Saga, as well as a Joss Whedon storyline from the Astonishing X-Men called Gifted. Ironically, Joss decided not to direct this movie. He was up for director. He decided not to do it and decided to go work on his Wonder Woman movie that blessedly never fucking happened.
God damn it, Joss. It's like, sometimes when you get involved in things, it just...
And he's not even, like, involved with this. He's just, like, tangentially involved at this time. But they try and give him the credit because of the Mutant Cure storyline, which I get confused about because that was a storyline that was introduced in at least the 92 cartoon series.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was in the comics before that. I could be wrong. I don't know. But it was at least introduced in that. It was an Apocalypse storyline when it was in the cartoon.
Yeah. Which Apocalypse was actually pretty... I remember being scared of him every time he showed up.
I don't think that... I mean, it's a thing that comes up pretty frequently in X-Men stuff, and I don't think it's that especially creative of a concept. It would seem like that would, like, suppression of the mutation and stuff like that, or elimination of it, would be a thing, especially when gene therapy starts becoming a thing that exists in our real life. Like, it's not that far of a leap to imagine it on a different scale in a sci-fi universe.
Yeah, I mean, we even addressed it again in the prequels, sort of.
Yeah, with Hank.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, so, yeah, that was the thing with Hank, wasn't it? Even in the comics, because he started out looking like a person with big feet, and then he eventually turns blue in the comics, and that was before Joss Whedon's time that Hank turned blue. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm not as familiar with the comics as I am with some of the other media.
I actually did have some of the older comics, like when Kitty was still very new to the team and still trying to learn her powers and just flirting with Colossus and all that. And she got kidnapped by the Lilandra. And I remember
Charles's terrible space girlfriend. Yeah.
I remember a few of those storylines, but I don't remember seeing that come up in the comics.
Regardless, it didn't originate with Joss Whedon, but they give him the credit for it anyway.
No.
The death of Xavier in this movie, I mean, spoilers, but this movie is how many years old now? Over 10? Yeah, I can do math. Over 10.
It's closer to 20.
Oh, God.
It is, sadly. Yeah, it is. It is. You're welcome.
2003, so yeah, almost 20 years.
Well, 2003 was X2.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, X3 was
X2 was 2003, because that was the year that I worked at the movie theater.
Right. X3 was 2006.
Yeah. So it was...
15.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Ish. The death of Xavier was meant to echo Spock in Star Trek 2.
Wow. That did not work.
It did not land. No. But yeah, they were trying to make it echo the death of Spock.
Oh, it didn't echo the death of Spock. It didn't echo the death of Xavier in the comics.
No.
Which is a thing that happened.
The only thing that echoes anything with Xavier is the spoiler at the end where he possesses somebody else's body.
I'm so irritated by that. It echoes back. Shut up. No, it doesn't.
And then you have Singer's original concept for X3 before he left, which was also supposed to center on the Dark Phoenix story. But it was supposed to center on only the Dark Phoenix story.
Which would have been... There was two... if they had just picked one of the plot lines they were considering in here, it would have helped.
See, that's what we were discussing when we were watching it, that it felt like it was somehow too much, but also not enough.
Yeah, the plot is really thin because they just kind of leave things just to sit, and then they don't do anything with them.
Yeah, they do these things that should have, like, really intense emotional fallout, and they just don't.
Or, like, they should have a lot of meat for the plot, and they just don't do anything with them. It's very bare bones.
Yeah, like when you talk about the Death of Xavier scene I'm thinking of in the comics, it includes, like, Eric holding him in his arms and weeping as, like, Charles tells him to like, he wants him to take over the school, and Eric saying he's not ready, the kids will never accept him, he can't do it, and Charles like, I know you can, you have it in you, and, like, you know, it's extremely operatic and very gay.
Yes.
And, like,
as it should be.
Here, on the other hand, like, Eric's just like, oh yeah, Jean, let's go hang out or whatever, right after she kills Xavier, right in front of him.
Like, he literally...
As a result of him antagonizing Jean.
Yeah, he antagonizes her, gets her riled up, then gets thrown into the kitchen, is just, like, pinned there going, no, don't do that, and then he... Xavier blows up.
He explodes.
And then after, he's just like, oh, my dear, come here.
Yeah. Jean literally Thanoses Charles right there in front of everyone very slowly.
It's so...
And Magneto has no issue with it? What the fuck, actually?
It's just, talk about whiplash.
Has, like, the time to, like, give Wolverine a reassuring smile right before he, like, crumbles to dust. It's extremely strange.
It's upsetting, is what it is for me, but that's because I'm also thinking about his death in Logan.
Oh, my God.
And I'm just like, no.
They gave all of his emotional development, though, to Logan.
Pretty much.
Like... We're supposed to believe, and again, this is where I will argue with people, and we'll get to this when we do Dark Phoenix proper, but this is where I take beef with people who say that Dark Phoenix is either, one, just a clone of X3, or two, worse than X3. Neither are correct.
Yeah.
I feel like at least those characters are in character. These ones... we're supposed to buy that Charles and Jean have any kind of close mentor, at best, relationship.
They're supposed to have any kind of
when all he's doing is just, like,
or something.
berating her.
Yeah,
since she comes back from the grave, like, all he does is just berate her.
And literally says that line, like, no, she needs to be controlled. And immediately I was like, ooh, repelled
everything he said about that was such a weird scene to me, because everything he said about Jean and that was basically what he says about Wanda in House of M. Literally down to putting mental blocks on her while she's unconscious. There's a scene in House of M where Eric is talking to Charles about his daughter and how she's going crazy and killing everybody. And Charles is keeping her unconscious, and he has, like, mental blocks on her to keep her from doing that. And it's literally the conversation he has with Logan. It is so strange. Oh my God. And it doesn't make any... freaking sense.
Well, I mean, and we even talked about this, about how, like, Jean's costume looks like they're trying to replicate Wanda way too hard.
The way she crumbles people, like, I mean, it brings to mind Thanos, but the chunks are bigger, and visually it looks like what happens in House of M when Wanda, like, kind of just, like, breaks apart reality and rebuilds it again.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know if they ever admitted this, but they're taking a lot of inspiration from House of M in a way that does not work at all, because Wanda and Jean are extremely different characters.
Yes.
And the Dark Phoenix has nothing to do with the Scarlet Witch.
No.
And, like, just so strange.
I mean, look at what they did with Callisto. Right? Who I remember from the comics is that chick that gets in that fight with Storm and gets bested, and she's, like, super cool, and is, like, leading all these, like, weirdos in the sewers. Yeah, like, Callisto's fucking cool, right?
Callisto is very cool.
They did the Morlocks dirty in this movie. They did everybody dirty in this movie, to be fair.
They did Psylocke dirty
look at well, I mean, this is what I mean. Like, Callisto's power set is not the same as it was in anything.
No.
She's effectively fucking Quicksilver on top of being Callisto for some reason. Psylocke doesn't have Psylocke's power set at all. No. But it's like they keep, like, taking these bits of these characters that should exist somehow else and throwing them in someone else because, well, we already did it with Rogue. Fuck it.
Also, they freaking... She didn't even have the eye patch that she does in the...
No. She had the weird face tattoos instead.
And then she gets not only electrocuted by Storm, but then all the others just get...
But that's the thing with the Morlocks in the comics, like, they explain that. They never explain it in this.
Well,
No.
yeah, I mean,
No,
like...
There's a reason for those face tattoos. And it's actually... it's like an expression of solidarity. Because they talk... This comes up in X2 with Nightcrawler and Mystique when they're talking about fitting in. And for most of the X-Men, they look like people. They might have, like, cool hair, but they look like normal people, and they can pass. Yeah. Essentially. But some of them, like Nightcrawler or Kurt and Beast or Hank, they can't. And it is a much more complicated world for them to exist in. And the Morlocks, what they do, if you join the Morlocks and you are one of, a Summers or something, who, like, looks like everybody else, they have you get a face tattoo so you can't blend in, so you have solidarity with your mutant brethren who have mutations that mean they can't blend in.
Yeah.
So that is not explained at all.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not even sure they call them Morlocks in this movie.
No,
because they just randomly join the Brotherhood, so they're just the Brotherhood.
Yeah, and they bring up the tattoo thing, but they don't bring it up in that context.
No, they don't explain anything.
No.
Yeah, they just want Magneto to get one, and then he talks about how he already has a tattoo. Which is like, I don't think Magneto could blend in if he wanted to. He's like the most famous mutant alive. Like, you know what I mean?
And too fabulous.
And also, he's not joining the Morlocks. It's just...
No.
That he's not going to live in a sewer. Excuse you. He has a base on the moon.
Except that they don't live in a sewer, okay? They live in a dilapidated church. It's totally different.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. But, like,
Or, like a homeless encampment.
If they had... They could have... I feel like they could have worked in some kind of explanation for what those tattoos are, because I feel like it's a neat thing that they do.
I mean, yeah, they could have. That was what they did in The Gifted. They actually explained what the Morlocks were.
They could have explained all of these different, just all these different factions of mutants, and they just completely...
either explain it or don't have them.
Yeah.
Because it's all, like, this is the thing that blew my mind about X3.
You introduce them just to blow them into dust anyway. Why even have them there?
This is the thing that blows my mind about X3, because I was looking at runtimes. X2 is 2 hours 15 minutes.
Yes, we know.
Good movie.
It's very long, though, yeah.
It's longer than the others, but it doesn't... I don't think it drags. I think it's like, what are you going to cut out? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, there's not much to cut out now.
And they don't... And the plot isn't too dense. Like, it's a good plot. That's just the length of time you need to tell the story that's in that movie. X3 is half an hour shorter.
And a good half hour, that is just the final fight.
Yeah. It's like, there's not enough time to deal with half the things that are in that movie.
No. Like, not even a little bit.
And like we said, there's like, they're trying to fit too much, but also they aren't putting enough into it at the same time. It's just really weird.
It's really threadbare for the fact that they've shoved too many story elements into it.
Like, it's so weird how they somehow managed that. It's almost impressive.
It's because they stripped everyone's characters down to nothing.
They literally made everyone an asshole. They made everyone out of character. They fucked Logan's development. Like,
Logan's being like a sexist asshole at Storm at the very beginning of it for no reason.
Yeah, no, get your panties in a twist.
We have Juggernaut screeching insults at Kitty.
Juggernaut was based on an internet meme.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to date your movie? Have a character in it who's entirely based on a meme from 2004. Like,
right?
Like, what? I was
thanks for the random fan service that everyone will forget, and this will just forever...
Or the people who do remember it will be like, why is this in a movie?
It's incredibly cringy. Like,
or it just becomes the meme. That's basically it. Like, that's all anybody remembers from X3 is, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch.
Like, it was incredibly cringy just seeing the gifs for it, but then you see it in context again, and it's even worse.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing that's crazy is, like, Juggernaut is an interesting character. Like, he's Charles' half-brother. Like, there's a lot
This movie doesn't
talk
about that at all.
No.
But there's a lot you could do if you wanted to go with that. Like, I mean, this is the thing. I want to bring it back to X2 because we should talk about it because it's so good.
Yes, let's do.
I mean, we could go on forever about everything wrong with X3, but X2, there's why it's so good, I think is something that's worth talking about too.
Yes.
And I will say, I'm gonna preface with, like, there are some scenes of it that, like, we were talking about, because the two directors most closely associated with these movies both have histories of harassment.
Yep.
Yes.
Among other things. I think Bryan Singer at one point fled the country because he was gonna get arrested. I don't know if he ever came back.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he's still out.
Yeah, he's still at large.
Because he didn't even finish filming Bohemian Rhapsody. They had to bring in Dexter Fletcher, the
That's
director.
Right.
He's actually facing, like, law consequences for the crap he's done.
Yeah.
Ratner's just kind of an
asshole,
abusive dick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they had to bring Dexter Fletcher and the director of Rocketman in to finish Bohemian Rhapsody, and yet Rocketman got fucking snubbed.
This is not for today.
Yeah,
it's not for today.
Yeah, because like Brett Ratner, like, he got, like, socially canceled, which he should have been a long time ago and stuff. Like, I think, you know, he got kind of people calling him out in terms of Me Too, and I know Elliott Page had a lot to say about his behavior on set.
Yes.
Which was disgusting.
Yeah, he treated him really badly, and I'm sure he treated other people badly too. It's just Elliott Page was the one I remember.
Yeah, Anna Paquin actually, like, corroborated all of Elliott's claims. So I mean, clearly other people on set even saw this.
I think you can feel that throughout all of X3, that there's just this really gross undertone of just mean-spiritedness through the
whole movie is just mean-spirited. It's mean-spirited to the fans. It's mean-spirited to the story. It's mean-spirited to all the fucking characters. I mean, we kill half the major ones off in, like, the first half hour.
But yeah, Bryan Singer was facing criminal charges.
Yes.
So
he's much worse.
Yeah.
Let's not get that twisted.
No. So when I say, like, and we were talking about this about different things earlier, but I was saying, like, you know, you talk about separating art from the artist, and with things where there's, like, one prominent or singular person, like a book or a musical artist or something, that kind of, if somebody's behavior is so reprehensible, it's a little bit easier to be like, okay, I'm not going to read any of these books anymore, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But when you're talking about a movie, like, I mean, no, I'm not, definitely not a fan of Bryan Singer, but big fan of Ian McKellen, and, like, you know, the rest of the cast, and, like, there's so many more people involved in it. It's like a football team versus, like, a golfer.
Yeah,
like, you know I mean?
So you can be mad at Tom Brady, but you're not going to be mad at the rest of the team.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, where I kind of end up hitting a wall with that, though, is when I feel like the person's crimes or misconduct or whatever is reflected in the work in a way that is really uncomfortable once you realize where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And there are some scenes in X2, I gotta say, kind of hit that nerve for me.
Yeah.
But also, I think they were supposed to, so it's a little murky.
Yeah.
Like, when they are, when Stryker goes to interrogate Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he gets beaten and held down, and they put the stuff on the back of his neck.
Yeah, I think that's deliberately uncomfortable.
And he's like, you see him, like, his fingernails on the desk. And
that was very uncomfortable.
It was uncomfortable to watch, but it was like kind of almost an intimate violation was, I think, what they were going for in that. And it worked, but it's also, like, doubly uncomfortable when you
know what
more. And then later with Lario, when Mystique assaults him in the bathroom, she drugs him and she injects him with stuff in his
his butt.
He pulls his pants down. I have to see him in tidy whities.
So again, that's another thing that's, like, pretty uncomfortable when you know more about things I wish I didn't know about Bryan Singer's crimes.
But, like, following that, you also see how Kurt has it in the back of that spot, and you also see how Yuriko has it in the back of her neck too. So it's just multiple people.
Yeah, it was everybody who was involved. All the mutants who were involved with Singer. That's what he was doing to them. He was.
You mean Stryker?
Stryker. What'd I say?
Singer. I mean, they are technically yes.
Freudian slip.
Yes.
But yeah, Stryker. Everybody, all the mutants who were involved with Stryker. Because, like, I mean, they say Kurt. The opening scene of. Is it the opening scene? It's early scene.
The opening scene is where he's trying to assassinate the president.
And they literally have Mozart playing.
And it's like a horror movie.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It really
There's
is.
so many parts in that were like a horror movie.
Yes.
It's really
Oh yeah.
and Kurt's introduction is really, really effective. And he's not himself, like, and whether you know the comics or not, like, I mean, maybe if you know the comics, it's a little more obvious. He's not himself.
No.
He's trying to assassinate the president, and they're shooting at him and stuff. And it's so good. There's so many set pieces in that movie that are just stunningly good, and then it's hung together with these lovely little domestic moments. And like just thinking of my favorite scenes, Kurt in the trying to assassinate the president. Kurt in the church.
Oh, that's gorgeous. That whole church is just stunning.
And the women talking him down.
Yeah.
Jean and Storm. And then meanwhile, you have chronologically I'm a little off. Eric escaping the prison.
Yes.
Classic.
Yes.
So good.
So good. He's clever. He is a sassy bitch to Lorio after he's dead. He can't resist just dunking on him one more time.
He doesn't have to lift the entire Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
To be a performative dick.
Yeah.
You also have Logan, like, taking the parental figure for all these kids in this house.
My favorite Logan is when he's the grumpy dad.
Me too.
Like,
whereas just like kind of asshole beratey insulty dad like he was in X3.
Yeah.
Like the role is completely different. He's just kind of
he cares about them.
Like
he's not good at expressing it.
They deprived me of Logan Kitty scenes in X3.
Yeah.
Instead, they were so busy putting her in a triangle with Bobby when I could have had Logan and Kitty scenes together.
Which we don't get until the redemption arc for this movie existing.
Yeah. And
so upset about it.
Yeah, there's just everything about the government agents invading the school.
Yeah.
Terrifying. Do you know how that hits like super
horrifying.
Different now than I think it even would have hit even in 2003?
That was really... It hit a very certain way.
It's all these kids in danger.
Yeah.
You know?
And they're getting shot with
coming
things.
into a school with guns.
Live ammunition.
Like, it's terrifying.
Not only are they getting shot with, like, tranks, but then they actually have live ammunition in there.
Or that part where, like, Logan literally gets shot in the fucking head.
Yeah.
And then they're like, Pyro, why are you so mad? I don't know, he just watched a dude get shot in the fucking head.
It wasn't even by those agents, it was literally by a regular cop.
Yeah. X2 says ACAB.
Yeah.
Like, X2... Bobby's brother swats him. His own
Bobby's brother's a piece of shit.
Yeah, fucking narc is
fucking how do you feel now, Ronnie?
And then, the domestic scenes with, like, the whole scene when they go to Bobby's house. And Logan says he's a art teacher.
What are you professor of?
Art.
Yeah. And the whole, it's a very, I would say, explicit coming out analogy.
Oh yeah. They didn't get their metaphors as twisted like they do in the next movie, where it's like, is this a queer metaphor? Is this an abortion metaphor? Is this a racism metaphor? I don't know anymore.
Is this a pro-choice thing? What is this?
I
don't know what's going on anymore. The metaphor's confused now.
The writers don't know what's going on either.
I think it can work even if you're not that specific. Like, it doesn't have to be a one-to-one
metaphor.
No. But, yeah, I think you can... If you're gonna be general, then you can't be parroting specific language related to these things.
Exactly, like it just gets muddied. Like if you're gonna try and use all of this like very specific queer coding.
Yeah. Have you ever tried not being a mutant?
Yeah, exactly. Like they have very specifically basically like queer coded mutant, or at least a lot of mutant language. The rest of it is, very disability oriented, and I think that's always been the case, really, especially when you get into like Cyclops and whoever.
Which gets very gross in X3 when they go no more mutants, and they're trying to like cure them.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like autism, doesn't it? But then you try and like shoehorn in like this very pro-choice thing in there, which on one hand I don't hate. There is something to be said there, especially for people like Rogue, who do have different problems than people like Storm, right? Yeah. But at the same time, like, the movie is not nuanced enough to be able to handle any of that narrative at all.
Well, because they don't put any time into it. They just kind of drop it and move on.
Yeah,
they do
the cure's here. Boom.
Yeah.
It's a plot point now.
We don't even know how much time has actually passed between X2 and X3. They never tell us.
In theory, at least months, if not a year, you know.
And so we have a whole nother president since then?
I mean, yeah, at least long enough to have a different president. But yeah, like, it... Yeah, they get their metaphors real confused.
And they still have Logan, like, not knowing if he wants to stay with his family or not.
How many times do we have to repeat the same goddamn character arc for Logan? Like, this is worse than repeating the character arc for Tony Stark, which will be one of my biggest problems with late MCU, is doing the same thing to Tony Stark over and over and over again. It's the Wolverine curse.
Because that's what I liked about X2, is that he actually, at the end, shows, no, this is my family, this is what I'm going to stay with. I don't need your facts or your truths or whatever. This is my family.
Because the first movie is him coming into the situation.
Yeah.
The second movie's like 2 years later. We can assume approximately the same amount of time has passed. Like, they haven't really, I mean, Rogue's still a student, you know, like, and then the next one's like 5 years after that. And, like, if he hasn't made up his mind by then, it's kind of like, you're still here. It's been 5 years.
Right.
Like, you have your own uniform.
Has it been that long? Is it supposed to have been 5 years?
I don't know if it's supposed to have been 5 years, but, like...
Yeah,
it's been clearly a while.
They never tell us how long
they leave it vague, I think, intentionally. Like,
it's just weird, because they still treat, like, Rogue and Bobby like they're still high school students, which at that point they would not be anymore.
Yeah. Yeah,
but I'm confused.
but it's also, the whole situation with Xavier is weird too, because they don't go to college.
Yeah.
They just stay there and then they work there.
Yeah, but, so, like, I mean, which I would get if you're, like, tutoring or whatever. Fine, whatever, that's fine. Or you're, you know, just permanently on the X-Men, so you just kind of live there or whatever. Fine, I can deal with this, whatever. But, like, if that's also true, my issues with that love triangle with Rogue and Bobby and Kitty is even worse, because Kitty is still a high school student at that point. Like, she is supposed to be only, like, 18.
Yeah.
Which, okay, she's an adult, but still, like, at that point she is so much younger than the other two.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yikes.
They seem to be playing it like they were contemporaries or, like, closer in age. Like, they're like, of a generation, I felt like. They weren't, like, the little kids.
They were trying, but at the same time, the movie was just very confused as to whether or not to still make them the kids or whatever.
And that's the other thing. Kitty's in X2.
Yeah, but...
I mean, Kitty's in all of them.
Yeah, but they're both played by different actresses.
Yeah.
Jubilee shows up in all of them, too, with the different actresses.
Yeah, we only get an actual character with Kitty in the third movie, and I think it's because Elliott looks so young and is so small compared to everybody else.
I mean, that's true, too.
They probably come off younger, but they might not be.
Yeah. But it's weird because, like, when Kitty is in X2, she's, like, of the younger kids.
But when she's in X1, she looks like she's about to fucking graduate and move out of the house.
Teenager.
Yeah. And then she's younger, and then it's, so it's timey-wimey. They are not, they don't care about consistency.
That's less so than the prequel movies, which get real complicated.
See, as we have had many, many discussions about the lack of continuity in these movies, so now you all get to hear about them and how we get to gripe about them.
Yeah, and I think it's like one of those things where you just kind of have to, like, be like, okay, I'm just going to go with it, because they were not thinking of continuity when they made these, and you can't put it on them, because it wasn't a thing that was even a consideration.
No, and by this point, they just got, by X3's point anyway, they just got to the point where they were just like, get this movie over with. We're done. We don't want to make these anymore.
Yeah.
And you can tell, and, like, everybody's practically thinking this, and you can just see it. You can see it in the actors. You can see it in the half-assed everything this movie did.
Yeah.
Except for my boy Kelsey Grammer. He was 100% in.
He's trying so hard.
He was trying.
He was so well cast as Beast.
Yeah.
He is, like, the shining high point, because he was so well cast, and he's trying, and, like, I actually liked his plot in it, and I thought it was a good place for Hank to be.
I actually would love for them, for their new X-Men
project.
Kelsey Grammer voices Beast. I think that would be the best.
Bring him back. I actually prefer Kelsey Grammer's to Nicholas Holt's, but that's just me.
He lobbied apparently for his cameo in Days of Future Past. He called them up and was like, "Am I going to be in it? You got a Beast." I think he just liked. I
want to be in it. What's up?
He only got the one chance, and he was so good in the role. And it's like
Fraser Crane wants to be in your movie.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, Kelsey Grammer could be tough to work with and stuff. But I mean, he was just such a great Beast.
He was one of the good things about this movie. Mm-hmm. The other thing was actually at the end when you get to see how resourceful Kitty is. They actually kept that part of her character. Mm-hmm. And,
she's, smart and quick on her feet.
Yeah, just like how she is in the comics. Yeah. And I appreciated them at least keeping that much of her character.
Yeah.
And then, the one scene where Logan kicks a guy in the nuts and he's like, yeah, grow those back. That's the only things in this movie that I actually enjoyed. Everything else was garbage.
I did like Ben Foster for as little as they gave him.
Ben Foster
as Warren.
Ben Foster's the other thing.
Oh yeah,
his Warren actually had more of a character than prequel Warren does, which is saying a lot because they did not give him a lot.
He had so little screen time and he managed to make that character work better than they did in Apocalypse.
He was this close to bankrolling, rolling in and being like, fine, you know what, you're gonna close, I'm gonna bankroll the school, what's up?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was this close.
Yeah, he had a complete arc in that story where in X3, Warren, it's actually a pretty gruesome scene, I think.
When they open and he's cutting his wings off.
Yeah, the opening is 20 years ago when Charles and Eric go to get Jean.
Yeah.
To the school.
Oh yeah, and then it's 10 years prior when we see Warren.
Yeah, we do another time jump.
And
this movie just time jumps all over the fucking place.
It's some body horror.
Yeah,
it is
such a gruesome scene. Because Warren is about 8-ish years old, 10.
He's very young.
Very young. And no older than 10.
With a bone saw up in there.
Yeah, and he is actually successfully cutting off his wings in the bathroom. And his father discovers him.
Oh, so bad.
And that leads to his father, because the Worthington cure.
Worthington.
They fund a cure for quote-unquote cure for being a mutant, and the idea is to cure Warren, who eventually, at the moment of truth, when he's going to get injected with this, he rejects it, and he fights his way out, and his wings, you get to see...
It was a beautiful wingspan, really.
It's a beautiful wingspan. It's the first time you see his wings, is when he breaks out of his restraints and says he doesn't want the cure, and then he jumps out the window and flies all around the Golden Gate Bridge, and apparently all the way to Westchester, New York, because he doesn't appear in any other scene in the movie until the very end.
He's the other thing I liked about this movie. I'll tell you about, because Ben Foster, for as little as he's given, he sells that character so well.
Yeah,
he's trying, and I mean, Elliott's fine as Kitty. I just get really, really mad at the writing. Only bringing Kitty in to shoehorn in a shitty love triangle.
Which why isn't Kitty? I mean, okay, granted, I didn't really ship Kitty and Colossus that much. I liked shipping her with Kurt Nightcrawler over there. Mm-hmm. But if they're gonna have Colossus there and Kitty, why can't you denied me the big and the small ship there?
Also, I have a quick question. Why is Colossus American?
I mean, I have many questions about everything.
He was American in X2 too.
Everything.
I don't remember him saying anything in X2. I remember being in the scene.
He did say something in X2 because he was trying to tell Logan, "I can stay and fight with you during."
That's right. Yeah. Okay. I remember this now. Yeah. He's
but also Colossus doesn't have a younger sister in these either.
Yeah.
What happened to that, bitches?
Well, I mean, they just didn't bring it up. She could have been around. It's unclear.
She was too busy fighting a demon bear in another dimension.
Yeah.
Rude.
Being Russian. I mean, that's the two. What do you know about Colossus? He's big, he can turn to metal, he's from Russia. That was his whole thing.
Yeah.
And it was a very specific choice at the time, too. Because it was during the Cold War he was introduced. Claremont did that on purpose.
Yeah.
He wanted a more racially and ethnically diverse group. And so he had Charles going all around the world to recruit these X-Men, and Colossus was one of them, and they just made him an American dude. And I'm like, come on. He has so few lines. He can, put on a goofy Yakov Smirnoff.
Yeah, try something, anything.
It wouldn't be hard to work with a dialect coach for, like, the 3 lines the guy has.
Yeah, he's carrying a TV and talks, like, once. Like, come on.
Like a huge TV.
Or just watch, Rocky IV do your best Ivan Drago impression. He could do that for, like, I must stay and fight. Like, it's not that hard.
I must break them.
Yeah.
I throw you now.
Yeah, he does the fastball special. And it just doesn't hit the same.
No, I mean, I will give Deadpool props for not, like, it's really, like, I know we give credit to Days of Future Past for, retconning X3 out of existence.
As it should.
But it's Deadpool that really tries real hard not to just retcon and fix this crap, but X-Men Origins when we get to that next week. Because, like, in Deadpool, you have the right Colossus being brought back.
Yes.
And you have a 900% better Juggernaut.
Yes.
Being brought in the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
Who I think is actually
scary.
Noted as being related to Xavier, if I remember right.
And pretty scary.
He was terrifying. This Juggernaut was just kind of a bro.
With a penis helmet.
Yeah, it did not land. I'm not even going to go into the summary of these movies, to be fair, because we've kind of already gotten there.
Yeah.
We don't really need to get into it. Also, like, the third one barely has a plot.
And if you've watched these movies, you know what the plot is.
Yeah, pretty much. So, X2, I'm not even going to go over the full cast because it brings most of the main cast back in each movie. But X2 adds Aaron Stanford as Pyro, Brian Cox as Colonel Stryker, Kelly Hu as Deathstrike. She's not called Lady Deathstrike like she is in the comics. She's just called Deathstrike.
Well.
And Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler. Cox was cast due to his performance in Manhunter because they were going to make him the creepy, insidious villain in this.
And I remember
he was Hannibal Lecter in Manhunter.
Yeah.
I feel like that's important.
Yeah, and it's perfect.
Yeah,
so good.
Because when I first got Ryan to actually watch Manhunter, I was like, no, you have to watch this movie. It's so 80s, you'll love it, right?
I had my doubts, and then we watched it, and I'm like, no, this is amazing, what the fuck?
She was losing her mind and loved seeing, is that Brian Cox? Oh my god, is that Brian Cox? I'm like, yeah,
is, like,
he's Hannibal.
So
and
evil in it, too. And he's, like, such a tiny, not much on screen. And the things he does are so subtle and so chilling.
They're
like,
so good. Because when I told her that he was playing Hannibal Lecter, she was like, what?
Yeah, no, he's sincerely the best part of X2. And I love many things about X2.
Yeah.
But
he really is
them bringing in Stryker was, like,
just
perfect. It was perfect.
Because
you didn't want to focus the movie on, like, all these big fucking plots that dragged down the third one. It was this thing that was focused for once on Logan correctly to a point. And then you have, like, Stryker doing all these really awful things with his family.
But he's also he's sinister, intimidating, and gleeful at the same time with it. Which, again, same way he kind of played Hannibal, which, I mean, this is why he got it, because he plays a good villain. Yeah. No matter the role.
But the weird irony there is that then they bring in Brett Ratner, who made Red Dragon. But
That's
Brett Ratner uses his cinematographer ended up doing, like, Manhunter and all these other movies that specific director made. Yeah, and Last Mohicans.
Oh my god. Michael Mann.
Yeah, his name is Dante Spinati, so I'm getting off cast a little bit, but he did Manhunter, Last of the Mohicans, Red Dragon with Ratner, LA Confidential, the third Narnia, Ant-Man and the Wasp, like, just this very up and down thing. So it's like every time he worked with Ratner, it was like, why? And every other time he was working with somebody else, it's like, wow, this is actually pretty impressive, what the fuck? Yeah. So it's just weird that you'd hire Brian Cox for Manhunter and then bring all these people that are, like, oddly tangentially related to it.
Yeah, it's another 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Every single time. Yeah, until we get to Kevin Bacon in X-Men, which we're not there yet, but we will get to it, so we don't even need to play 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's right there.
He's
done.
Right there.
But X3 will add also Kelsey Grammer's, Hank McCoy. They'd never call him Beast in the movie.
No.
They just call him Hank.
Or Furball by Logan.
Yeah.
Or Henry, which was the weird one.
Yeah, that was weird.
Elliott Page is Kitty Pryde. Ben Foster is Warren Worthington or Angel. Dania Ramirez as Callisto, and Cameron Bright as Leech, who they just had look like a dude instead of also like a Morlock like he was originally supposed to be.
Yeah, you told me that he was like that green little kid.
Yeah, he's the little kid in the sewer in the cartoon that just steals everybody's powers.
I totally forgot he looked like that in the cartoon.
And instead they made it the guy who goes on to become a bad vampire in Twilight.
And also you have Bill Duke as Trask.
Yeah.
Which is weird to have Trask in a movie and no Sentinels.
No, I mean, they
except for the one in the danger room.
The one in the danger room. And also, yeah, because he was in the original Predator. Mm-hmm. I always thought that was weird.
Yeah, it was because Trask is one of the big villains in the comics, like Stryker.
Yeah.
So like to introduce him into the movie and then like just have him be kind of like a functionary of the president.
Yeah,
like,
he's there.
It was very strange. Whereas like when we get Trask properly in the prequels,
we get the Sentinels.
He is kind of tangentially related to Stryker because they're both related to the government in different ways, so they're kind of it's a little more integrated in a way that makes more sense than these old ones do, especially when Stryker was working with the former president, not the current one who looks like Rand Paul.
No, not Rand Paul.
Or not Rand Paul, Ross Perot.
Ross Perot. That's
I was like, no, there's another guy that is never president who he looks like.
Completely different.
You want to know who else was in X3 that kind of blew my mind was Shora Agdashloo.
Yeah, I can never say her name, but yes.
I love her voice.
She deserved a better role.
Yeah.
Her voice is so beautiful.
Yeah, she's a scientist who was working on the mutant treatment.
Yeah.
But she's in The Expanse, and she's so good in The Expanse.
Oh, yeah.
She was in The Exorcism of Emily Rose, too. She was
that, like, doctor character witness.
Yeah, who came in and explained all the spirituality stuff.
I loved her. I loved her in that so much.
Yes, she
just like, please just talk through the rest of the movie. That's all I want.
Just talk through the rest of the movie.
Can we have her come do an audiobook of the Bible? Because I'd listen to that.
I would listen to that.
If you're unfamiliar with what we're talking about, if you've seen her in anything, she will make an impression. Mm-hmm. She's stunningly beautiful.
Yes.
And has this, like, rich, husky voice with this, like, beautiful Iranian accent. Mm-hmm. She is just a really stunning person on film. And then she just kind of shoved it off to the side.
Yeah, she's literally
a dude hugs her and kills her.
She's spiked to death. It's such bullshit.
No, what they should have done is brought her back as that doctor role that they had in the New Mutants.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really hate the lady that they put in that, ironically, even though I didn't really like that movie much, and we'll get to that when we get to New Mutants, I guess, but they could have brought her back for that. There was no reason they couldn't have.
Like, unless she couldn't do it.
Maybe sure.
Yeah, I mean, she had commitments to The Expanse, too.
But if she didn't, there was no reason they couldn't have done so.
She is one of those few actors where I just, like, melt over their voice. She is one of them. Jeremy Irons is another, and Charles Dance is another.
Well, I mean, it's a very James Earl Jones-esque thing, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's just that voice that you can listen to, even if they read the phone book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what
and she's just drop dead gorgeous, too.
Oh, yes.
Incredible. But so that... But... I was gonna say, what was I gonna talk about?
We just got so distracted by a beautiful woman.
I know. I'm just thinking about Shora now. But no, I wanted to say, was it Yuriko?
Yeah, Yuriko.
Her death is so upsetting to me.
It's really
dark. Yeah,
it's really gruesome.
And that's one of those things where I feel like kind of the it seems very racist and misogynist the way she's killed.
Yes.
And it seems like decisions on parts of the filmmakers, kind of like attitudes of theirs that I think are present in how the women of the series who were so pivotal in the comics, like in the source material, are just shunted off to the side.
Yeah, that is my biggest problem with the early, all of these, this trilogy in general, but like the first two movies especially, is they just damsel everybody. They're just useless.
Although I feel like Storm has a great role, and I mean even Rogue, because Rogue is still like a kid, but
it just gets so exhausting because we know what Rogue's actually supposed to be like, and this isn't it.
Yeah, definitely. She kind kind of grows a little bit, but she's never really given. She never grows into the Rogue we want.
No.
Yeah.
We remember from the comics and,
Poor
and
Anna.
the cartoons,
God.
which, I mean, you're cast to be Dolly Parton with superpowers. How exciting. And then you're just a nervous kid the whole time. Like, it's...
Yeah, like, we even went and watched the first 2 episodes of the animated series after X2, and it was, like, night and day with Rogue. Like, she's literally punching Sentinel's giant robots and, like, flipping them over, and it's...
And yeah, and like I said, I can even understand why they would be kind of in a bind because Rogue got those powers from Captain Marvel. They talk about it, comes up in the cartoon.
Sure.
But we
so
literally,
does Carol.
But we literally explained a way that she could have gotten those powers.
Yeah,
it would have been
like,
easy.
You could have gone somewhere with it.
It would have been so
just
easy.
give us some random mutant that has the same powers that she did the same thing to. Boom, done.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you had to do. You didn't even need to make it Captain Marvel or Ms. Marvel. You didn't even have to do that.
Yeah, but I feel like of the 3, Storm gets the best turn in the second one. I will say, Kurt's like this charming, lighthearted swashbuckler dude that everybody is like kind of in love with.
Yeah.
And they made him like this very, very serious character.
Yeah.
And I can understand on one level because he was like violated and forced to do something he didn't want to do.
100%.
So I can see him having like a hard time with that afterwards. But we never get to see Kurt in any other way. He's in that space the whole time. Yuriko, her death. So like, the things that bother me about it, well, first of all, it's gruesome, but because she has like a similar healing ability to Logan, so like he has to do a lot to her to get her to kill her. So he drowns her and he pumps her full of adamantium in the process to keep her from like getting to the surface.
And literally just conks down.
Yeah,
into
and
the
like
water.
it leaks out of her eyes and stuff.
That was
and,
so fucked up.
But what really bothers me about it is that every other mutant who's been under Stryker's control is allowed to break out of it. And there is a scene where she starts to.
You can see her hand shake.
And that's
and she's
when
like looking at her hands, like, how did I get here?
And then he goes and does it right in front of Charles.
Yeah, well, and he just like kind of. He's very forceful with her.
Yeah.
And he just kind of moves her around like a rag doll, which he doesn't quite do with anybody else.
Yeah. I mean, he does beat Eric down.
Sure. But like, he just does it with such like casual ease.
Yeah.
With Yuriko that he doesn't necessarily. I mean, like, because Eric is obviously fighting back, but like, and sort of Jason, I guess, because Jason's confined to a wheelchair, which I don't like normally saying confined to because that's not the correct terminology.
Which I mean,
in that case, I think it is an apt description.
Because the thing is that we don't even know if
what he did to Jason.
Yeah, we don't know the extent of it. We don't know if he was in a wheelchair prior, or if his father did in fact put him there and confine him there. And frankly, if he was able to do that to his own son, I can't even imagine what he's capable of doing to.
Yeah, because it's not even just
women.
like a mobility device thing like it is with Charles at that point. Like he's literally confining this kid to a wheelchair like it's a cage.
Yeah.
But even then, you don't see him handle Jason quite the same way that he does with Yuriko.
And I think,
which is just like a doll.
It's just very casual, with her head
grabbing her ponytail and shit. Like,
and I think it's worth mentioning because like if you haven't seen it, she's the only Asian woman on the cast. I mean, Jubilee shows up
for like 2 seconds.
But yeah, she's the only is more of a cameo.
Yeah,
she's the one who has a role.
And she barely even has a speaking part. They don't give her a character.
She doesn't really say much at all.
No.
It's so irritating because it's like, okay, so you're giving us this foil to Logan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I love this. You're giving us somebody who has similar powers, who should have similar trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You don't give her a chance to redeem any of it. You don't give her any kind of character or internal thoughts about any of it. Like, they remove not just, like, character speech or whatever. Like, they don't just remove her agency in the way where, like, the story does that.
Mm-hmm.
No.
She never gets any.
No.
Ever.
And I think that's why I ended up liking the Wolverine so much. Like, it was a movie I put off watching for a long time because I hated Origins so much. But then when I watched it, I'm like, you have several Asian characters they have not only speaking roles, they have full-blown arcs and character and dialogues, like motivations. Like, it's it's leaps and yards better than what we get here with Yariko. Like, you get Mariko, you get Logan's role during World War II. You see how he even came into contact with the Yoshida clan. Then you see the actual ninjas that they have there. You get to...
I mean, we don't want to get too far into that because we're covering that next week anyway, but...
I know, but I'm just saying, you compare what we get in the Wolverine to this, and it's just like...
night and day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, it's really... When you point it out like that, yeah, it's incredibly upsetting because she is the only Asian character we actually get. She barely gets a speaking role, and she gets one of the most brutal deaths in the trilogy.
Yeah, it's effectively filling someone up with cement to kill them.
Yeah.
Boiling hot cement, too.
Yeah.
And
what the fuck?
And, like, we can assume Jason had a pretty gruesome death, but that was off screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and even Stryker was off screen. Like, he was kind of stabbed and chained up and stuff, but...
Yeah, he was basically left there to be pulverized by the water.
Yeah, but we don't watch it...
No.
No,
you don't watch it happen in explicit detail and
it's
over time and get to see how pretty the corpse is.
Yeah.
That's also the thing, is it's a pretty death on top of it. It's got that weird thing that, like, Marvel is even... will be guilty of later down the line, and it's one of my biggest beefs with some of their later movies is how they do that. And I don't want to get into that until we get to those.
Yeah.
But it's got that very, like weirdly sexist, male-gazy, pretty female death thing.
Like, even
where even the corpse has to look pretty.
Like, even Jane's death, you see her die, technically. Along with, you see...
Yeah, but even then, like, you don't see it mutilate her, she just kind of...
No, I'm just
the water
saying,
just falls down.
I'm just saying, compared to, like, how the dudes are off screen, we see the women.
Yeah.
Die.
Yep.
Yeah, both times Jean's on screen.
Yeah!
Both times. Although you do... The deaths in not Dark Phoenix, X3, Last Stand, they're more explicit and on screen.
They're more equal opportunity, at least.
Yeah, I mean, you see Charles explode, so...
Yeah. There are 200... The death count is 200 in X3.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And yet
at least according to IMDb, so that count may be not correct, but...
They only have 3 graves, though.
And yet the 200 deaths, but the only warning that we got on the stream was tobacco use. Okay.
That's a question. Because, like, in the...
Yeah, because Logan's over there trying to puff his cigar on, the fire on the fake car in the danger room or whatever.
He's like, that was my last cigar. Why do you have that in the danger room, though?
Because he's Logan, and how would you know otherwise?
This is a question, looking to the future. Are they going to let Logan drink beers and smoke cigars in the MCU?
They better.
I don't know. I mean, like, they tried to remove all of, like, the smoking from the Penguin in the new Batman. That was one of the few studio mandates, is they did not want to allow Colin Farrell to smoke.
But all that brutality and violence in there, that's okay.
I mean, I barely noticed it, to be fair.
That's okay.
That's not even a spoiler, to be fair. I'm not spoiling anything for you, but it was one of the studio mandates there, is that they didn't want him... They didn't want to deal with tobacco use in it, I don't know.
We get all of these 7 David Fincher-esque booby traps. We get all this incredibly visceral violence. We get all this weirdly other disturbingly implied shit, but no cigars. That is a bridge too far.
They might let Logan drink beer. I mean, they've let Captain America drink beer. They've let Tony drink quite a bit.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Smoking, I don't know. I don't think that they're going to do the big tobacco thing anymore.
They let Tony drink because it was explicitly an addiction narrative.
Yeah.
I mean, fair, but they also let Cap drink.
Yeah.
Well, he was also grieving.
Well, and, like, isn't that what they're doing in Age of Ultron?
Yeah, they all drinking? Have, like, actual beer bottles.
And all the Asgardians do is drink.
That's true. Yeah, so maybe they will let him drink beers.
Just no smoking.
Yeah, the other question is how they're not going to let it. They're not going to let it be gay at all. Like, not even implied. Like, metaphorically gay.
Which is upsetting because, like, we almost get there.
Yeah, let's talk about the queer narrative here because, like, You can hear me shifting in my seat.
Yeah, I mean, we get
the
Stop it.
What is the difference with X-Men, and why do I love them so much? And I think the first two movies in particular do a really good job of. They're not necessarily superheroes, and I think that's an important distinction that it's the same thing with Fantastic Four, and why these movies keep failing with the Fantastic Four is because they work best when they're like a weird Star Trek family, just exploring space.
Yeah, that's what the Fantastic Four is. It's a family.
But they keep trying to make. Well, yeah, I mean, you could be a family of superheroes, but they're a family of space explorers who have weird powers. Is the best expression of Fantastic Four, which is why when they try to make superhero movies with them, it doesn't work.
They somehow just keep failing at it when it's really not that hard, guys.
Yeah,
they're called Marvel's first family, for a reason.
But X-Men, it's all inner family squabbles. You know what I mean? They have they are all dealing with this oppression by the dominant powers, right? Mm-hmm. Which is humanity in general, and they have different ideas of what to do about it, and that is, I would say, the best. When the X-Men movies and when the X-Men stories work the best, that's what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Is how to best deal with and free yourself from this oppression. And that is the kind of story the MCU doesn't really like. So and when we get into things like Last Stand and the Dark Phoenix and even Apocalypse, I would say, which I'm jumping ahead, but that's when they're fighting against oh, I'm going to destroy the world. No, we're going to save the world.
Yeah.
Those stories don't work the same way as X2 does, right?
Yeah.
Which is the real moment of conflict in X2 is when Eric tries to get Charles to kill all humans. Which is kind of incredible.
Yeah, it's his Futurama moment.
Yeah. Okay, and I want to ask you two about something because I was thinking about this.
Okay.
So the way Stryker decided to handle this, because he wants to use Charles to kill all mutants.
Including his son, apparently.
Including his son, but I mean, clearly he doesn't care about his son.
No, obviously not.
He's just using him as means to an end. And he builds a replica Cerebro. That's why he has Magneto. That's why he's torturing him.
A dirty, nasty Cerebro.
He's getting him to... Because Eric says he helped build it. So I love it when they actually acknowledge that Eric's a genius engineer. Aside to all of his metal powers, he's actually a really good engineer. So he, in this universe, he helped build Cerebro, and so he knows all the deal with it. And they use the little mind control thing on the back of the neck and get him to tell them how they built Cerebro. Mm-hmm. And so then they get Charles in there, manipulate him, try to get him to kill all humans using their replica Cerebro.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Eric manages to get in there, and with the help of Mystique, and he swaps panels around.
He just moves.
It's just the organization of where things are on the wall that'll convince Charles to do something different.
We laughed about that actually.
And and then Mystique pretends through a series they tell Charles they want him to kill all humans now, and Charles is being manipulated. It's a whole thing. So what I wanted to ask you guys is, did Eric intentionally build in that mechanical ability into the replica? He knows he's being mind controlled, but he has enough strength of will to build in a flaw that he can exploit at a later time. Because I was thinking about this later, I'm like...
I mean, it's possible.
I don't think that's a thing that the original Cerebro can do.
I doubt it, because they more likely imply that it's Charles's gaslighting that's really controlling what he's doing. I don't actually think it's the way the panels are arranged. They just did it because it's so...
it looks cool.
It looks cool.
I mean, there's this one throwaway line that they do at the beginning, or in the early part of X2, where, Logan's
when they're trying to find Kurt.
Yeah, and Logan's like, well, can't you just, concentrate harder and find him? And Charles is like, yeah, but then I'll kill him.
Yeah.
So I think with the original Cerebro, there isn't really a need to build that flaw to exploit because Charles is already capable of doing it purely on his own.
Yeah, it's true. I was trying to justify him flipping all the panels around.
I think
he just did it because he's a dramatic bitch and he wanted to have his operatic moment.
Yes.
Because the thing is that
and then the little
because he just wants to show everyone, look at all these metal things I can move around. Fuck you.
It's like Tetris.
He's doing it because he gets to control Cerebro now, not have Stryker build it for him. Yeah. That's what it is.
I know this better than you do, peasant. Yeah. He just moves it around.
And then the very subtle little shoulder touch when he's like, goodbye. Because he knows, like, if he succeeds and Charles murders all of humanity, he will never forgive Eric. Like, this is him being like, okay, that I've crossed the line. You'll never be able to forgive me. Bye-bye.
See, the saddest part about that, though, is that we later see how it pretty much kind of came to pass when it's basically very thoroughly implied in Logan that Charles did, in fact, actually murder a bunch of people with his mind without meaning to.
I mean, we'll get to that when we get to
it's just
next week.
I kept thinking about that every time this got brought up, and I'm just like, this hurts a lot, actually.
Well, it's gonna hurt a lot more next week.
And I'm gonna cry like a bitch.
It's gonna hurt a lot.
I will say, that was another thing I actually liked next week, is the very beginning, when Charles and Eric are friends. They just have such a vibe, and like every time Eric looks at him, it's just like adoration. Like, he loves him so much. Like, Ian McKellen's really pouring it on thick in that scene.
And that's about the time that he stops being in character.
Yeah.
Because my biggest beef with Eric in that movie is what they do to Mystique.
Yes.
And my thing with this is it's like, I get what they're going for on some level, where it's like, well, you're not a mutant anymore, you're not part of our club, but on the other hand, she was saving him, she has been loyal to him for God knows how many years. I think he'd be angrier at the people that did it to her than her. I feel like that's part of it where I can see the sexism inherent in whoever was creating it, because nobody even thought of that. Like, why would you just leave her there?
Yeah. Also,
she'd be furious at what they'd done to her. Are you serious? Like, she'd become the fucking martyr for his movement.
And this is like, he also similarly just brushes off Charles's death, which is extremely, especially...
Like, he gets mad at Pyro for 0.2 seconds when Pyro's like, well, I would have killed Xavier myself, and he's like, no, my biggest regret is that Charles had to die for our cause to live, or whatever.
He did more for mutants than you will ever know.
Yeah, but like...
Okay, but then you don't
especially when
care.
they have that first scene when he's just so in love with him. You know what I mean? And then he's killed in front of him in a gruesome way as a result of his own
Logan
actions.
feels worse about it than Eric does.
Yeah.
In the same house, even.
Yeah. And then he just brushes it off.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care. And then, Mystique, who has been his, like, bestie this whole time.
My theory, my headcanon, is that they were romantically involved because she could turn into a dude. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
so. Is your headcanon that she was she was imitating Charles the entire time?
No, I think she was doing a different British dude for him that probably sounded like Charles.
Not that close, but close enough to
definitely
close enough to scratch the itch.
Either way, she was definitely pegging him. That's all I'm saying.
Does it count as pegging if it's not a strap-on, though?
That's a good question. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah. This is my thing about Mystique that they never even come close to addressing, but it does come up in the comics. Is like, what does gender mean to a shapeshifter? Literally nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Like, it's like 100%.
As much as it would mean to Loki, jack shit.
Yeah. Like, though I think it's significant that she is most comfortable most of the time
as a woman.
Yeah. But she, like, other than that, like, does it matter to her? Probably not.
Well, I mean, in the comics, like, Mystique has a bunch of babies with a bunch of different people, including one with Sabretooth.
And she also is the father of Rogue.
Yeah, like, she changes from, male to woman. She has same-sex relationships. She has het relationships.
The big love of her life is a woman.
Yeah. Like, Mystique just...
She's non-binary at best.
She's absolutely that. Gender fluid, she's absolutely meets those labels before we even had those.
Yeah.
Well, I find it funny that Morph is basically the same character. I mean, this is getting into the cartoon, not this movie. But Morph effectively does the same thing with Wolverine. Like, that is incredibly queer-coded, whether or not the cartoon intended it, because Wolverine loses his entire shit over Morph. He gets
so upset over Morph dying.
More than he does over anybody.
Yeah.
It's also, what I would say, that's the thing that kind of disappointed me about X2, is you never got to see that kind of queer-coded relationship that comes up with Kurt and Wolverine.
Yeah.
In the comics, they go on, like, ambiguously gay road trips all the time.
Yeah,
like,
because she's constantly calling him Fuzzy Elf, too, in the comics.
They have
he wasn't fuzzy like this, though.
Yeah,
they have
movie Nightcrawler's not fuzzy.
One of my favorite panels is they have a big birthday party for Kurt, and he's like saying how wonderful all his friends are here, and what he's doing is opening his gift, and it's a gift from Wolverine. It's a photo of Wolverine.
Oh my god, it's like that meme from the cartoon where he's like caressing the photo.
Yes,
except that photo
Kurt has the photo of
Wolverine instead. Yeah. But you know, really what it should be is you should flip it and it should be Kurt's picture right there in Wolverine's photograph.
What Wolverine did when Kurt died, though.
No, it should be
in the comics.
It should be Morph's picture in the
Oh my god, it's true though. Like, you know, like, they try and shoehorn in that, like, Logan Jean thing, but, like, I don't feel like he cares that much. He cared more about Morph.
I mean, he does later on, but then there's also this AU they show in the animated series where he's with Storm.
That happens in the comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good pair.
It is.
It's one of my favorite, my more, one of the ships for Storm that I like better.
Yeah.
The only time I've really liked it in the movies, though, is Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
It's the only time that they really seem to have chemistry that doesn't, like, grate on my nerves, because X3 ain't it.
Oh, yeah, X3 is rough.
Like I said, everyone in X3 just seems to be out of character.
I mean, they shoehorned in a fucking line.
They're just
for
assholes
Beast,
to each other.
Just to compliment Halle Berry's hair.
Yeah, like, all the characters...
I can't.
All the characters are assholes to each other. Everybody's out of character. It's
Cyclops.
It's relentlessly depressing. Because
poor Cyclops, pour one out for my boy.
Yeah, because you're either having characters killed off or exploded, or you're having them just be characters you barely even recognize, where all that development from the past two movies is, like, out of the window, or they're making really stupid decisions that, why would they do this?
And, like, Rogue never gets to enjoy her powers or learn to control them, which are two things she does in the comics.
Yeah.
She does learn to control her powers. So, like, in X3, she gets the cure and just gets rid of them. But this is the other thing.
But then there's the implication that she doesn't, actually, because if Magneto is implied getting his back, it implies that everybody else who took them away will eventually get them back.
That goes back to what Eric does to Mystique. So Mystique gets shot with the cure. She loses her ability to shapeshift. She's suddenly a brunette for some reason. And, and he just, like, turns on his heels, like, okay, bye, you're not one of us anymore.
Well,
Later.
she was so beautiful, but, you know, I'm just gonna leave her there naked in a
truck. Not even give her, like, my little cape to, like...
No.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nope, she's just nude. Bye.
God. And I feel like Eric, he appreciates loyalty way more than that.
Yeah.
Like, he would
care. He wouldn't trust the government saying this is a permanent cure. He would not trust that. And he's smart enough to be able to at least try to counteract it.
Yeah.
Like, but again, also, why not just make her a martyr for your fucking cause? Like, look
so
what happens when you trust them to do things for you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
look at what they did to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why...
They attacked her with it. I mean, she's useful in that one, because he keeps telling people they're going to use this on us.
Yeah,
they say it's voluntary, but it's not going to be voluntary.
But then he just gets rid of his literal illustrated point of that.
Everything about it is...
Well, I mean,
so strange. And yeah, like, I think, like we were talking about with the Eureka, like, it's just kind of the showrunners, the creators, like, kind of misogyny and just discounting women being important to the narrative or to the other characters.
Yeah.
When in the comics and even in the animated series, they are, like, integral to many story arcs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one of the things that really
Storm's like a leader of the team.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. A lot.
And she gets some of that in X2. She gets some of that.
a touch.
She gets more than she does anywhere else in any of the other movies.
They try and imply it heavily in X3, mainly because she's the only adult that isn't Logan around now.
yeah, everybody else is dead or crazy.
Or Hank, who works for the government inexplicably in this movie.
Yeah.
Which I like that role for him. They don't explain how he got there.
No, not even a little bit.
But it works for him. I could see him doing a decent job at that, at least in a way that, like, they would listen to him.
There's no explanation for how he gets from his cameo, just talking on the news, when Mystique is, pseudo-assaulting a dude, to...
She's roofing
working,
him.
to working as a secretary for the government in a new cabinet.
And not only that...
This is the thing about that.
And not only that, but he's, like, in the cameo, he's regular. He looks regular,
yeah, he's just like a dude.
Blue.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is the thing that's weird about his position that I feel like they didn't really go into, but the Secretary of Indian Affairs is still a position. It was a position for a long time, and it was not one that worked out for the Native Americans. Like, you know what I mean? The Secretary of Indian Affairs usually was a tool of genocide, essentially.
Well, I mean, to be fair, they do kind of, like... Hank co-signs some weird shit when he's in that cabinet meeting, where it's just like, you can see what they're doing to Mystique, and he doesn't say a goddamn thing.
Yeah.
It's really odd, where it's like, you can see that he can see these things going on, and he still doesn't quite...
But here's the thing, like, I could see Hank doing that. Hank is, like, the ultimate assimilationist, right? He just wants to be one of the good guys. He's one of the good ones.
But
and she's not, so he's...
I mean, he's the one that's trying to shut the school down.
Yeah.
When Xavier's dead.
Well, I mean, when he's watching Mystique in there, he came across more like he was trying to, like, keep his real emotions under wraps, because
that's fair, too.
Because he didn't want to lose his position of power that he actually managed to have, which
also
a lot of other mutants we do not see have that.
Yeah, I mean, that's also fair.
And he also says, you really think that's going to keep her contained?
I mean, he knows. True.
I think he knows, and that's, like, as much as he could let himself say.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. But, yeah, I mean, like, they kind of imply it, but again, like, this is one of those movies that's just not nuanced enough to make the social points that it thinks it's trying to very cleverly give to you.
No, it does not.
You know, like the pro-choice narrative stuck in the middle of the queer narrative, stuck in the middle of the race narrative, stuck in the middle of the, like, it's just not, it's not nuanced enough to be able to pull off the politics stuff on top of the big superhero punchy things narrative.
They're barely nuanced enough to even keep their characters consistent. Can we really...
we really trust they don't even do that.
Can we really trust them to handle all these major plot points?
I really think this movie, like I said before I think we started recording, I said I feel like there are two very different stories happening in X3, and both would have benefited from being, if they were separated out.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think you could have done just the Cure stuff. With a lot of foreshadowing for Dark Phoenix, and have Dark Phoenix, and also in that foreshadowing introduce the space aspect, because the way they did it with split personality was so dumb and didn't work.
Ham-fisted and real weird.
It was really
like, I get that the actress tried to do a lot of research on that. That's fine, but that's really not on her. It's on the writing at that point, because really they were the ones who made that decision.
I mean, she was trying.
She was.
She also had very little to say. She had very few lines.
Yeah, well, by the time you get to the last half of the movie, she barely says anything other than kill me.
Yeah, she's just standing there.
And that's the other thing. It's like, you know, I mean, you don't have to have lines to get things across, right? You can just do it with, you know, gestures, expressions, reactions.
Except that they don't.
Well, because she just stands there. Like, I don't think it's like a thing that she could do much with, because I think they told her just stand there and watch.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I've seen plenty of performances where the actor's completely silent and they don't need to say a damn thing, because they're emoting, or their actions, their gestures, the visual storytelling is enough. This was not that. This was just standing there staring vacantly, and it was so infuriating, because Jean is so much more than that, and these movies have never, ever given her that, just like they always put her in fucking red when she's a redhead, and every time I remember that, it pisses me off.
Every time she does, in fact, complain about this literally every time it happens.
Every time I notice it, I'm like, why are you putting a redhead in all red?
Because they're making her Wanda.
God damn it.
God, it also doesn't work for Wanda.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Especially now that she has orange hair. Fuck. She was better as a brunette. I'm just gonna say it.
She's a brunette in the comics.
I know. That's what I mean. She's better as a brunette.
Why do they keep trying to dye her hair?
I don't know. We're gonna get way off track if we start talking about that. Though.
Wanda, we'll never get.
I'm actually on that note of. I think we've said really what we're gonna say there without repeating ourselves too much. So, Bridget,
yes.
Final rating for X2.
X2 solid 5.
Okay. Rating for X3 though.
Boy. I'm gonna give it a 2 because there are parts that I genuinely like. Warren.
Yep.
Warren's whole arc. I do like how they have Hank in there. I think Hank is a bright spot. And that's enough to get it to a 2 because a 1 I'm saving for things that I don't like anything about.
Yeah, that's like the Hulk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
So that's where the 2 comes from. But X2 is a 5. Like, you don't get any better. I mean, like, we talked about things we didn't like, but you know, it's
still an incredibly solid movie in spite of that.
It's solid and it's far more enjoyable than it is.
And you get those great moments at the school, which is really the best thing. Like, I mean, there's a lot of talking about we're a family. They like to say they're a family, but you feel it. And you get also, man, I didn't talk about this one scene I really like. It's so subtle. It's one of these subtle little character things. When Logan comes back from Canada, the place where everything terrible happens in the X-Men universe.
Blame Canada.
Blame Canada.
Canada is a land of misery and death for the mutants. It's so funny. Everything terrible happens in Canada.
I thought it was in Alaska.
No, it's Canada.
It's definitely Canada.
It's Canada.
So Logan comes back from Canada this early in the movie, and the scene opens with Bobby and Rogue having like a little boyfriend-girlfriend moment, and they're not kissing. It's also like Bobby comes out in the comics later, and it's like, it's interesting. Bobby's dating the girl he can't actually touch.
I mean...
So anyway, but like, so they're having this little boyfriend-girlfriend moment, and it's broken up because Rogue hears Logan's... It's actually Scott's motorcycle.
Logan's motorcycle, effectively.
Yeah. Pulling up, and she lights up, and she runs out there. So I love the moments in X2 with Logan and Rogue because they have this bond from the first movie. I think it's really subtle because it seems like Rogue has like a schoolgirl crush on him, and that Logan is perfectly aware of this, but he doesn't encourage that at all. But he's not going to stop talking to her because they do have this bond, and she needs that in her life, you know. And he's a good enough guy, he's a good enough mentor that he recognizes this. He is not taking advantage of her at all.
No,
it doesn't come off as creepy. It's very sweet. The way it's played is just pitch perfect, right?
Yeah.
So she comes over to talk to him, and he's side-eyeing Bobby. Bobby's like, "I'm her boyfriend," like puffing out his chest, and he's like, "Okay." And then that's broken up by Jean and Scott, and you get like.
Logan going, Jean!
Yes, and Scott being like, "Hey, you brought my motorcycle back, huh?" and I love it because you get so much about the dynamics between these characters and how kind of tangled up and interwoven they all are in each other's lives, and that weird dysfunctional family / polycule thing.
Yes.
That is my favorite part of X-Men.
Yeah, the character relationships are what make X-Men so great.
And yeah, that feeling of, I mean, of being an outsider, and something about you making you different than you are not sure of how open to be about it, how much to hold to yourself. I think is why it works probably best as queer narrative. It's an oppression narrative in general, which is always kind of flawed because they have superpowers, and generally oppressed people are just oppressed. They don't have superpowers as well. But yeah, it just being an outsider who still wants to be part of the world and help people, and you have talents and gifts you want to share, but like people don't really accept it, is such an interesting narrative for a superhero franchise, and I think it's best in things like X2, where that's really explored, because this character of Stryker, who's abusing them in ways that are government approved.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just such a solid show. But that one scene is like such a great little. So many things are pitch perfect in the performances, because the cast is always the high point of these.
Yeah.
They have such a great cast in all of them. So.
It also just shows that the writing was eons better.
Yeah,
in the
true.
second one.
Yeah, and Logan doesn't say anything gross or weird to Rogue, because he cares about her.
No, he gets to that in the third one, when he just gets gross at everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, but in that scene, it's just like, it's just a shining moment. It's just such little things that all work, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, M. Rating for X2.
5. I'm gonna say 5 again.
Rating for X3.
Oh, God, this piece of shit. I'm gonna be mean and give it a half star.
Oh! Wow.
Because the thing is that the only reason I'm not giving it 0 stars is because there are singular moments in that movie that I actually like.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, there's too much of all this other flaming shit pile of a movie buried over it that I can't really. I enjoy it for that moment it comes up, but then everything comes it comes barreling down on me, and I'm like, oh god, now I remember why I hate watching this again.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be mean, and I'm gonna give it a half star because I hate this movie, and rewatching it. It wasn't better on rewatch. It was actually worse because now I'm noticing even more shit on it that I hate.
I think I'm inclined to agree with you in that half star would be really only for like Ben Foster and the couple of performances that were solid in spite of the attempts at the writing to ruin them, or the performances that just tried to do their best with the shit they were handed. But for the most part, just you can see the director's disdain for everyone there and the material, and how little anyone really cared about this because they were just trying to rush it through.
Yep.
And it's just it's rough, and all of these actors deserved better. The characters deserve better. The fandom deserves better.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm more inclined to give it a 5 and a 0.5.
The X3 movie, it just reminds me of what, at the end of the day, Jenny Nicholson had to say about The Rise of Skywalker, where she says the worst way to end a movie franchise is to make you feel stupid for being excited about it in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's X3. It doesn't tarnish the first one and the second one.
No.
Because those are really good.
Yeah.
If you stop at X2, it's good. You can stop at X2. You don't need X3.
Yeah, you don't need X3.
No, you don't at all.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you know that, like, Jean's whole thing is that she keeps dying and coming back, so when she shows up in Days of Future Past, it's, like, not weird.
Well, also, especially because Days of Future Past acts like a retcon in general.
Yeah. So, but, like, yeah, you don't need it. It is, which is unfortunate because I do think Kelsey Grammer is the best casting for Beast I've seen him.
Ever.
Yeah, ever. He's just fantastic. But, I mean, you can watch the YouTube clips of it, I guess. They're probably out there, right?
Like, basically, this movie fits the same example that I used for Age of Ultron, where it's like a giant, massive turd with little nuggets of gold buried in it.
That's very descriptive,
You're
but
welcome.
We're not to Age of Ultron yet.
I'm just saying it fits.
It's
the same thing.
That's a preview.
Yeah, I mean, anybody listening is going to know that we have no favorable opinion of Age of Ultron.
I'm just saying X3 made me feel the exact same way, and really fits the same way, because like I said, there are these little singular things that I like, but the rest of it just is bogged down by bad.
Yes.
And that's just how I feel about that.
Yeah. So, thank you for listening to this episode of FANSPLAINED. If you enjoy what we do, consider donating on Coffee. I can't talk every time I do this. I screw it up. Everything we make goes right back into the production quality of the show. We appreciate all of our subscribers and everything you do, and we're thankful for anything from Hulk smashing that like button to your questions and comments on each episode, and especially sharing the show with your friends. FANSPLAINED is a weekly media criticism and deep dive podcast, and we're currently working our way through the Marvel Cinematic Universe's multiverse. We're finishing up our first dive into the multiverse next week with the Wolverine trilogy, so we'll be doing X-Men Origins, the Wolverine, and finishing up with Logan, and then the week after we'll be back to the MCU. So Bridget will come back with us next week, and then back when we do more X-Men stuff after we get to Age of Ultron, basically.
I can't believe y'all making me watch Wolverine Origins again.
Hey, you're welcome!
Hey, we have to watch it too, man. I'm not looking forward to that.
One of the 1-2 punch that made me quit watching superhero movies for like 10
But you get to watch the other two good ones.
That's true. And I have not watched the Wolverine. I never watched that because I was so burned.
The Wolverine is very good.
Okay. That's what I've heard. I love Logan. I might watch it black and white just for a change of pace because I've watched it so many times.
I mean, I held off on the Wolverine for the same reason because I hated Origins, but then I watched it and I was like very pleasantly surprised by it.
Cool. We'll see how I feel about it because it'll be my first time for that one.
So do you want to remind everybody where they can find you other than our show?
Yeah, Olympic-sized podcast. It's about the Olympics. And I do a lot of research for it, and I have 2 really fun co-hosts, and we try to find interesting stories. Some of the research has been difficult because it's like records. There was one where the only IOC official report was in French and it had never been translated.
Oh gosh.
So, Google Translate.
It was PDF. I couldn't do it.
Well,
it was like old daguerreotype newsprint. I was I can't Google Translate this crap.
Ew.
I can't fucking read French. So I did my best. But yeah, we try to find interesting stories about old Olympics, which, not even remotely related to this, but it's fun.
Yeah. So you can find our updates here on YouTube as well as on Twitter and Coffee at FANSPLAINED. We'll link the Olympic Size podcast in the show notes like we did last time. If you want more of our conversations on the MCU and other fandoms, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell for new episode notifications. Until next time, Salt Shakers, this has been Ryan,
M,
and Bridget
with the FANSPLAINED podcast, and we'll see you next week.